Welcome back to the show. On this week's episode, I'd like to tell you my top 3 favorite things about the military town that I live in. I live in Lawton, Oklahoma. And Lawton's a pretty average military town. I couldn't see it surviving without the military base that it's next to. I don't really understand how towns these small are a thing. It's me, not you, Lawton. Recently found out that I'm going to be living here for another year. I wanted to make this video to force a more positive view of the city that I'm living in right now onto myself. You'll see how that works. So I grew up in the Bay Area, which is a huge sprawling suburb. Then I go to school outside of New York, and then I moved here for the first time. I just didn't know. I started to understand what all these country songs are about. It's been cool to get that perspective. Not that cool, but kind of.
I guess that's why they call it God's country.
Before I get into my 3 favorite things, I googled Lawton tourism. I just wanted to make sure that I was doing my due diligence, and although I've lived here for a year and a half, just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything. And one thing that kept popping up on the top of all the lists was this museum, which I ended up going to. The Museum of the Great Plains, which, if you thought there was anything that didn't need a museum. So I walk in, and the very first thing I see is a display on tornadoes. And then a 7-minute video on basically how unsafe and terrible it is living in Lawton.
Of course, the tornado sirens were going off, but we just took things for granted because the tornado sirens were just a common occurrence back then.
And my brother-in-law said, "Elaine, your house is destroyed." I cried.
I guess it was the next day when I heard that Richard's daughters had died.
Why would you rebuild right there on that spot? And that's because it's home. And you don't change home.
I'm trying, Lawton. I'm trying. Work with me. A display on a guy who makes saddles in town. So I sort of just walked around. It was pretty awkward for me. I'm pretty sure the woman at the front desk saw me doing my little walking bit because she was laughing as I walked out. But if you're ever in town, I'd definitely check it out. It's cool. So the first thing, in no particular order, that I love about the military town that I live in is our one and only Starbucks. I'm pretty sure this had opened the last time I was here and everyone lost it for this Starbucks. Now that I'm back a couple years later, it's a lot chiller and you can actually get in there and hang out, and it's a really good Starbucks. It's an above average Starbucks, I would say. There is also a coffee shop in town that I love, but they're only open until 5:30. It's a small town thing to do. One thing I do love about this coffee shop, not the Starbucks, but the one in town, is that they blast Christian music, which is, I'm a Christian, so I love it, but it's just definitely something that would never happen where I'm from. Number 2, the view from Mount Scott.
This is God's country.
Now technically Mount Scott isn't in Lawton, but it's near Lawton, and you can see Lawton from Mount Scott, so I'm giving Lawton credit for this. Lawton's definitely more beautiful from farther away. Help me. And my final favorite thing about the military town that I live in is our Target. Thank you so much, Brian Cornell, for sending us a Target. I am forever in your debt. If I could live in the Target here, I would. And I think they'd understand. Now I want to say this list says a lot more about me than it does about Lawton. And over the next year, I'm really going to try to find more stuff than 2 chains and something that isn't actually in Lawton. I really am. I'm going to try, okay? So you can expect an update in